Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where today, I've got to admit, I'm quite excited to speak with today's guest because his name is Pierre Berlin. He's a classy guy who has a great story to share, which has seen him work everywhere from LinkedIn, and he's currently at Figma, which is a web-based design platform, which is used by the likes of Uber and Deliveroo, and as a result, they're challenging the likes of Adobe and Sketch. And forget unicorn status too, because yes, Figma has received significant investment, but it also has a heavyweight $10 billion valuation. We've got lots to talk about today, including reinventing remote collaboration and a great story too. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the UK so you can join me and Pierre in conversation. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Pierre. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Of course, and thank you, Neil. Thank you for the invite. It's great to have the opportunity to speak with you today. So I'm Pierre Berlin. I'm the general manager of EMEA at Figma. Figma is a web-based design platform, and that is really disrupting the market by reinventing the digital design system. And my role is really to lead our EMEA operation, grow our customer footprint, and build a team here in London, and soon and very soon in other European countries. And this is really exciting, time for working at Figma and for Figma in Europe. Half of our revenue is made outside of the US, and we are working with absolutely incredible customer. We have hired amazing people at Figma to take care of those customers. So. And this is just the beginning. So super pumped by this company.
And I'm looking forward to diving a little bit deeper into everything that you're doing at Figma right now. But before we do, I know you've listened to the show before, so you know what my first question is going to be. And that is, can I ask that you share your origin story and where your passion for tech came from, and ultimately what put you into this world and how will put you on this path, and how the worlds of web design and technology all collided for you?
Yes, you're right. I listened your podcast, and I knew that question was coming. But it's a tough question, actually. I worked in the tech sector for now almost 21, 22 years, 24 in my entire career, including in France, as I'm sure you can tell. I worked in many different places in the world. I've been very fortunate. And tech actually was not my passion at the beginning. I would like to tell you if it was. I did not have any plan for my career when I was young. I was not absolutely tech excited. I was not the kind of teenager, working on some stuff during. No, that was not me. I literally started my career after my military duty in France in a communication agency. And that's actually the first time I met a designer and face the beauty of the creativity that those guys were branding. So here we're bringing, I'm thinking about brand design, particularly here. And most of the customers of the agencies that I work for were tech customers. And so I speak here about Oracle, Apple, Sage, and then business objects. And for them, what I was doing is that I was organizing their main event, particularly gigantic exhibition in Paris. Maybe you have heard about Apple Expo, Oracle Expo, those kind of big shows. And so I was working really with the marketing team of all those big brands. And naturally, after a few years, I've been hunted by one of them called Business Objects. And I became their channel marketing manager, because half of their revenue was indirect revenue. And that's where my interest started to grow, as I was in contact with those guys. And I really see and I really appreciate how all those companies, so we are in the end of the 90s, if you want, were really changing the B2B space and how organizations were really working and doing their own business. So that's where that's where it started. And then I moved to business subjects and studied that. And I really see and appreciate the value that this company was bringing to their customer in the change management process in the organization, how they were transforming the information system, how they were completely transforming the customer relationship. And particularly when I'm thinking about it, because I think we are going to talk about it when we will talk about more Figma, but with the birth of extranet, between organization and their own customer, I think that this is the first step of the digitalization of the customer experience in a B2B context. And that's what really interests me the most, because as a salesperson, when I was able to detect, to understand that customer relationship with their own customer and how the technology and how the extranet can bring some value and how it can innovate in that customer relationship, I thought it was absolutely fascinating and convincing those companies in the end of the 90s, to open their information system outside of intranet, outside of their own companies, was a game changer. Because think about it, we were just, by that time, companies only have an email and faxes. And so thinking about, wow, I'm going to share outside of the organization, it was a massive change. So that's where it really came. And then I left. SAP acquired business subjects for $7 billion. It was in 2007, and that was one of the biggest acquisition by that time. And my career was there, and I said, well, tech is definitely the place where I need to be. And then I moved to LinkedIn, where I also saw a bit the same story. Around I worked for LinkedIn 6 years. And I led their EMEA team for their talent solution business, and here really I really saw that again a very disruptive solution, and how how can I say that? How customer, were really used to use job board, staffing agency, and how LinkedIn has massively changed the way the people were working. We're putting the talent acquisition role in a support function, moving from a support function to a very strategic function by providing insight to them that were helping customer to make much more informed decision and business strategic decision for them. So think about, I remember one day that I was working for a very big French industrial company, and that company won a big tender. And basically the question was, where are the talent that we are looking for? And should we build and actually open a new factory in a certain country? And do we have the talent in that country? And will it be easy to do it? Versus, actually, those talents are in another country, and maybe the trade-off has to be made between those two countries, and bringing that kind of information to the executive of that big industrial company, put the talent acquisition person in a much more strategic position than just, okay, that guy here to recruit people. So again, if you think about my passion for tech, it's not realistically the tech in itself. I'm not an engineer. I'm not very technical, but it's the usage scenario, the value that the tech is bringing, and how that disruptivity help companies to be better. And so I stay at LinkedIn for 6 years almost, and I ended managing 850 employees and doing a $500 million revenue. But at some point, I wanted to go back to more entrepreneurial experience. And so I came to, that was my second startup, because before LinkedIn, I had one short experience in the French startup. Just after LinkedIn, I moved to a British startup called Deal, and then an American one called Mixpanel, where I led their global sales organization across 7 different offices in the world. And finally, I joined Figma, where I am now for 20 months. Joined literally at the beginning of the pandemic. You cannot make that the really at the beginning, because I actually experienced the first day of the lockdown in San Francisco, seeing the city completely becoming locked down, and there were still two people in a 800 bedroom hotels still in the hotel when I left San Francisco by one of the last planes to go back to England. But I didn't have to look back, since I am in Figma, because we have established our HQ, European HQ in London. And that's it. We have hundreds and hundreds of customers, many employees. The last 20 months have been absolutely incredible.
Wow, what an amazing story and a fantastic journey that you've been on. And like you said, that path led you to Figma, which is a web design platform. But that's not really doing you guys justice, because you're not just a web design platform. You're also used by Uber, Deliveroo, Bulb, and so many others, and actually challenging the likes of Adobe and Sketch. But can you tell the listeners a little bit more about what Figma is and what makes you guys a little bit different from other solutions out there?
Well, Figma is unique because, simply put, it's web-based. So you don't need Neil to download. Nothing is required. It works only on your computer, your smartphone, your tablet device, and that can be really accessed by the web. And you don't need the last version of the Mac. It may be obvious for everyone, but I just want to be clear that for decades, a very long period of time, any design software were only existing on Mac. And so that's I would say the first and clearly the first difference and benefits. And that break the first benefit, I would say, the barrier of design. Then I would say it's really simplified the entire design process. And from the ideation phase that you all have when you are thinking about designing to the design, to the build phases, Figma is an all-in-one solution, where previously the product design stack was very complex. You had solution for designing, solution for prototyping, solution for brainstorming, etc. And with all the challenge that you can imagine of communication between all those tools, where do you put your information? Where do you put your file? What is the source of truth? Who can access? How do you onboard a new joiner when you have so many tools? And so I think that drove actually a lot of loss of time and efficiency problems. And so having one all-in-one solution, Figma, cover that entire process is clearly the unique. And I would say that, since I joined and I spoke to so many customers, they are really unanimous on the efficiency and the productivity impact they had for their organization, instead of having designer using, as I said, 4, 5, 6 different tools to get their job done. The also key element in terms of Figma and how unique it is that it is enabling the real-time collaboration. And I think that traditional design platform only enable one designer to work on a file at any point of time, and which change required to be merged afterwards. On Figma, multiple designer or even non-designer can really collaborate on a project real time, seamlessly. And so you need to wait that someone has finished their job to start yours. And with that simplicity and the real-time collaboration, it is more and more non-designer also that join Figma and that are helping to collaborate visually, which is our mission. Actually, our mission statement at Figma is really helping teams to collaborate visually. Figma unlock the design process from its silo and bring many non-designer to participate, to comment, and to work collaboratively in a much more iterative approach than what it was ever in the past. When I told you that my first job was in a design agency and that the first time I met a designer, those guys were, the room at the back of the office, door closed, we can't interrupt them. They were working on the design and for hours and hours, a long night, and they were coming with the design at the end when it was completely done. And then you can give some feedback and they have to rebuild everything. This is over. This is really iterative. Exec now are joining the design process much earlier. Marketing people, non-designer to give feedback, to participate, because design is increasingly important. And lastly, when you ask me the unique aspect of Figma, I think it's also the diversity, and that brings diversity to design, because we have seen during the pandemic how remote work moved, and I think that what we have seen also is that design team are increasingly expanding across border and territories. It's real-time collaboration capabilities allow that someone in the US, a designer in the US, is able to work with someone in India and in the UK and talk together and virtually get some high five, like if they were sitting in the same room in the studio. And that, this diversity adds to the overall diversity of design system. That's increasingly important today.
And a lot of people would have noticed or discovered Figma online in the tech headlines. You guys have had significant VC investment and also a pretty hefty $10 billion valuation. But one of the things I always try and do on this podcast is not just celebrate the success, but all the hard work behind that success and the story behind the company. Is there anything you can share about the beginnings of Figma and how you got where you are today?
I can. So I was not personally there because Figma was founded by our CEO, Dylan Field, and his partner, Ewan Wallace, CTO, in 2012. So it's what, 9 years ago now. They met in a university at Brown when they were studying computer science. And I think that, what I really understood is that Dylan was in London actually a couple of weeks ago, and we spoke about that, is how the brainwave for Figma came when he decided to switch major from computer science to product design after an internship at the company Flipboard. And from his time at the company, you realize, how much design was influencing buying behavior. And actually how much businesses were valuing this, recognizing that. And so there were really a big opportunity for a software platform, that can really reinvent the design process to make it more collaborative. And so Dylan pitched his idea to a web-based design company called the Thiel Fellowship. I don't know if you heard about it. Yep. And secure $100,000 fund to pursue the business. And so Dylan effectively became what I think we call a college dropout to get Figma off of the ground, relocate to San Francisco with Evan, develop, test, and deploy the platform. And after numerous development, beta release, as you can imagine, payment plan, community drives, and also with, I would say, the incomparable quality of the solution, the word of mouth in the design community, the pain that Figma addressed for its customer in less than 9 years, it is now a firmly established design platform, as you said, very well valued, that I can say is loved by creative all over the world. And our CEO, college dropout founder, is now, the CEO of a company very well valued at 10 billion, which I think is pretty cool.
It really is. And I think it's so important that we shared that story today, because all too often we hear about so-called overnight success stories, but we don't celebrate those 8-9 years of blood, sweat and tears to get you where you are today. And I think that's something that startup founders listening around the world will want to hear and give themselves something to be inspired by and aim for too. And as for Figma, though, a big part of it seems to be the relationship with the design community. You said a few moments ago there that the creatives love it, but has that always been the case and a big part of what you do at Figma?
Short answer is yes. I think the true wants and requirement of the design community were at the heart of Figma inception, and I don't think, what other design platform allow designer to collaborate in unison. So yes, definitely, you're right. Our relationship with our design community is absolutely key for us. We have kept that relationship with the community very strong from day one, and I don't think it will never stop. We don't just view them as customers, but really a true collaborator. We have an impact on the day-to-day of people with that solution, and so we are really building Figma all together. They are 100% part of our story, and honestly, there is not a day where we are not celebrating, some feedback of user that we are receiving. We have, channels of called Friend of Figma, and people are celebrating the great impact. So our community is really brilliant, and never worked so far in a company where I've seen such a community, and they are constantly sharing feedback, encouraging us on what they want to see. They are sharing inspiration. They are sharing advice between them with the other Figma user, and really spreading the word to designer that still don't know Figma. And so it's. If you go to Figma, you will see that they also sometimes design their own plugin, and we learn from that, and really they amaze us. So I think as we go forward, all launches and updates will continue to be made with the community in mind, and that will really never stop. So I think, in short, maybe you can hear is what I'm saying, but we love our community, and I think. And that's really a personal statement here, but Figma won't be existing without them. That's as simple as it is.
Well, that really comes across in how you're talking there, that passion for the community and how important it is to Figma. And of course, so much has changed in the last 2 years since you left that 800 room hotel with just 2 people in it and the last flight back to the UK. But can you tell the listeners a little bit more about the new business model of design and how that's actually accelerated during the pandemic, and why design is differentiating brands across each and every sector right now?
I think in the last 10 years, as e-commerce, smartphone technology really came for the fore, businesses have really differentiated themselves through the digital customer experience. And, the old days of build a store and the people will come are well and truly over. Any brand in any location or sector can compete for any customer on the same plane. And the digital experience is what set them apart. And so, as the playing field has significantly expanded, and it's also becoming more and more busy and more noisy, and it's more and more difficult to be seen, to be heard for companies, and to differentiate themselves outside of the crowd. I think actually that was the trend, but that the pandemic accelerated, and because I would say the means of communicating with brands transform completely and entirely now in virtual means. The design of those experiences become more important and as strategic priority, I think, for many companies. I have seen companies in the last 20 months, Niels, designing new customers' experience in few days, literally in few days, particularly in retail, as with lockdown coming, everything changed so quickly with their customers that if they did not adapt brutally, if I can say that, millions of dollars or pounds or euro of revenue were in play for them. And so they better have to move early than late if they did not want to lose their customer. And so design became much more strategic very quickly. And here, when we talk about design, we are not just talking, of course, about aesthetics. That's part. We're not talking about the logo design, the color palette, the imagery, of course. But we're also talking about the very important component of the experience. When we talk about design, we mean the entire design system, the user journey, and the friction in the experience, and all these components add up to a sum of greater than its individual part, changing the customer perception of brands for better or worse. So, I think in the last 20 months, that's what we've seen, and businesses are really recognizing this now, which means that design experience continue to reach new bound with continuous development, testing, and deployment. And I think that the design race is set to continue. And so for Figma view, designer must have the most streamlined collaborative software to enable them to keep up.
And of course, with that demand comes the demand for first-class design talent, as design and user experience become even more important in engaging audiences of all ages across all platforms, serving audiences all around the world. So can you expand on that demand for first-class talent right now?
Yes, and that's I think talent is an absolute key priority for everybody today, and fresh talent is something that Figma is very passionate about. As a platform that has been was found by a student, I can say that we are well aware that innovation and great idea come from up and coming generation. So it is not just important to the future of our business, but I think it's important for the future of all businesses. And so with that in mind, as design becomes the new business model, a company must ensure they have fresh design talent that bring unique perspective to their design system. This is absolutely key. And that's why us at Figma, our contribution, if we can say, is that we really offer a free education plan to students to help to instill critical design skills in the next generation. That's the way we can contribute. And definitely we are speaking, and many employees at Figma speaking with schools to continue that education.
And one of the things that I think is really exciting right now is web-based tools and how they're reinventing remote collaboration and empowering diversity in design by ultimately enabling true remote collaboration across location, operating systems, platforms, and the list goes on and on. So can you tell me a little bit more about why you think diversity is so important right now, and also the USP that diversity can deliver too?
This is absolutely crucial. Diversity is really in the heart also of our thinking. I think it's imperative that design teams have a multitude of perspective. Whether it's different gender, ethnicity, sexualities, or demographic background. We used to say at Figma, anything great is made alone, and that's truly what we think. Figma helps business to overcome this because design talent can be hired from almost anywhere. There no longer needs to hire exclusively in cities that are notoriously expensive to live in, such as London, New York, Paris. Teams can become truly multicultural, and in addition, can use Figma without, as I said, the top iMac, Macintosh product or any internet-enabled device will do. And so Figma lower the bar for entry into the design field and into the top design jobs. It enables anyone from any location, any device to be a designer. So I think in turn, it is helping to diversify teams and ensure that design outputs are more considered and catered for all.
And as the reinvention of collaboration is continuing, can you tell me a little bit more about Figma's latest virtual whiteboarding tool and audio capabilities? Because again, as everything has evolved, it just feels tailor-made for the situation that we all find ourselves in this new way of working now.
Yes, that's thank you for that question. Actually, I think we have launched 2 awesome capabilities this year that helps teams to collaborate better than ever before. The first is Figma Jam, which is a virtual whiteboarding tool that aims to make whiteboarding session more inclusive, more productive, more engaging. Designer and non-designer can join a virtual whiteboard to flesh out design idea together. They can add icon, post-it, notes, message to each other works, and it's truly taking the monotony out of the whiteboarding session and encourage people to ideate in a different way. You can even do a high five, a virtual high five on Figma Jam, and so I believe it helps that every voice is really heard. the time you can envision the time of I don't want to say all meeting, because we still have some meeting like this where you have a person with the whiteboard, and the post-it and the pen, and there is one person a bit leading the meeting around the whiteboarding, and there is a couple of extrovert people in the room who can speak, and the other are more in the back of the room listening, not really participating. We have all in those kind of meeting, and I think that definitely Figma Jam is a different way of collaborating and really help also every voice to be heard. I think that the rollout also of the audio capabilities that you mentioned also allow anyone to talk to each other through Figma or Figma or Figma Jam files. It means that, designer, non-designer don't have to call each other over Zoom, Teams, Hangout. They can seamlessly dial in from a Figma Jam platform or Figma platform and to talk simply about their design ID and the change they want to do. And so both of the capability have been launched with great success and have been really invaluable to our customer during the pandemic, where obviously collaboration has never been more necessary and has never been more testing in the shift to remote. And Neil, as people are coming back more to the office, and a lot of companies are adopting a kind of hybrid model with a certain number of days working from home, a number of days working at the office. I think the employee experience in a remote world is going to become central for organization. So, we are of course building products for our customers, but I'm thinking about the employee experience here. And I really envision that collaborative software are going to continue in the next months to improve their product, improve from an employee experience to make somehow the at-home experience as quality or as close as the quality we can have in the office. And I believe that Figma Jam, and I believe that the audio capability and Figma as a whole, has a key role to play in that transformation of the employee experience that I think a lot of companies are adopting or are going to adopt in the coming weeks and months as their employee will want that hybrid way of working.
There's so much I love about that, especially giving everyone a voice in the room, because typically a lot of those meetings, it's the strongest personalities that often take over, and getting the people with the great ideas that are sat at the back, so important. And I've loved hearing about your story too today. But before I let you go, we did begin talking about your origin story. I'm now going to have a bit of fun with you and ask you what has been the soundtrack to your career in tech. Is there a song or piece of music that helps you get your head in the zone? Just remind you of your career in tech. What would your song be?
So that's a very difficult question to answer because there are so many. I love music. Yeah. I grew up in a family with 4 sisters. Each of us were playing an instrument. My mom was the head of the choral in our city, so there were music everywhere. I can remember, and I'm the last one, so I heard the music of my sister listening Supertramp, Simon and Garfunkel, or the Beatles. But I'm also a big movie fan, and I'm watching, and my life and all my reference are in movies. So when I'm thinking about your question, I'm really thinking about the intersection of the two, and I think it is going to drive me to a music film. And when I think about tech, when I think about stage, that brings me to the Silicon Valley, because for me, tech, San Francisco, where I almost lived during 2 years when I was working at Mixpanel, I was spending more than half of my time there. Every morning when I was waking up at this hotel close to Union Square in San Francisco, I was literally listening one music that was putting me the smile, that was putting me the energy and the motivation at the right place to start my day. And that music is the music of the movie La La Land, Another Day of Sun. And then I was listening Someone in the Crowd and City of Star. And I think about the interesting part of that is that I never listened to that music in another city. It is really depending on the energy that I feel in a place, I listen to some music. So if I'm in Dublin, I will listen U2. If I'm in London, I will listen The Boat That Rocked, the music. If I'm in Milan, that will be Italian song. But tech equals San Francisco equal La La Land, even like the movies in LA, and then another day of sun. Don't ask me why. That's the way I feel.
Oh, man, I love it. I feel like I need to go to San Francisco and listen to that on my way to the Cheesecake Factory. I'm going to make that happen one day. But before I let you go, for anyone wanting to find out more information about Figma or anything that we've talked about today, what's the best starting point of finding you guys online and contacting your team?
Well, of course, anything about Figma, you do not hesitate to reach out. You can find us on the website, and there's a contact page. If you prefer to use traditional social network, Twitter, LinkedIn are super possible too, of course. And if you want to reach out to me, my profile is in LinkedIn. I remember that I stayed 6 years at LinkedIn, so I'm still very present on LinkedIn, and so do not hesitate to use that one.
Well, there's so much I've loved about our conversation today, from the very beginnings of Figma there, and before that $10 billion valuation, and the 9 years of blood, sweat and tears, and the wanting to reinvent remote collaboration and empowering diversity in design and enabling true remote collaboration across all locations, etc. All fantastic. But even more so than that is your own personal story that brought everything to life there. But thanks for sharing that with me today, Pierre.
Thank you, Neil. And thank you again for the invitation. Much appreciated. Thank you.
What a great guy and an amazing story. And I love the path that he's now on and exploring how to reinvent remote collaboration and also empowering diversity in design. But over to you. Anything we've talked about today, if you've got any questions, comments, insights, experiences, or pitches to come on the show, honestly, whatever it is, please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @Neil C. Hughes. And if listening to me in your earballs every single day of the year is not enough and you'd like to work with me, you can also pop by my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. But that's it for today. So bright and early tomorrow. Please don't be late. I'll be waiting in your podcast feed with another episode. But thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.